Would you go on a first date to a comedy show?
Yep.
Fair enough. Then you're asking for trouble.
My name is Alice Markey, like khaki. I can't believe I've like cancelled myself. Sometimes the biggest slay comes after the biggest flop. The Sigma grind set was on.
All I can say about Andrew Tate is that
You love him.
I love him. No.
He's your favourite.
How did they let this on TV? This man is insane. He's going crazy. Yeah, W Riz. Goblin like freak.
I kissed my mental health goodbye for the bag. Maybe we'll cut this out.
It's quite hard not to quote you on a podcast.
It's not always going to be fun every time, but it should be fun most of the time.
Have you ever been locked out before, Joe?
Yeah.
How was that?
Long.
And you wanted to get let in?
I wanted to be let in, yeah. I was knocking on the door to let me in, but you know what?
No one let you in.
No one let me in.
Right.
Welcome to the Let Me In podcast. I'm going to start off with my favourite question.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to imagine your life as a story with a structure of a beginning, a middle, and an end, where do you feel you are and why?
Hopefully not near the end.
Okay.
Because that would be
I am just about the closing credits.
very sad. It'd be so sad if you put this out and had to like record a memorial message at the start.
It would, but it'd be good content.
Like a heavy sigh, like.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, as you all know, Alice passed away.
Minutes
week
after.
Minutes after.
So she was wrong. It was actually the end.
Yeah. What a legacy. What a legacy. Our people's princess. Where do I think I am in my life? God. So, full disclosure, I've been like unemployed for like 8 months. Just because I'm a freelancer and my industry has been very, very quiet. So I've been temping and stuff. So it's quite a weird, destabilizing time. But what it has done is given me this kind of crazy go hard or go home grind set where I'm like, sometimes the biggest slay comes after the biggest flop. So that's where I think I am in my life. That's what I've kind of had to like delude myself into thinking, like Eminem and 8 Mile.
I really hear that. I don't know if you find this, but I've definitely found this before of after a big kind of slump or a big career drop or whatever, like I've definitely had that. It's like almost you appreciate when stuff happens more.
Yeah.
And you kind of...
Yeah.
Get up and get going.
Yeah.
That's what the grind set is.
Yeah. Sigma grind set.
Yeah.
It does make you, I think it makes you more...
Maybe more focused or more like
focused.
We spoke about having the fear. So when I tried to persuade Jad to quit his job, not too long ago.
I like soft quit. I like just half my hours.
Were you part of the quiet quitting epidemic?
No,
that.
Well, I just like
mild quitting.
Well, Joe said I should go like fully quit so that I'd be homeless, basically.
Dependent.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a nice demographic
It's
we
being
have
unveiled here.
Well, I'm sort of like Joe's a bit like my carer, like a little bit.
Wow. Yeah.
And friend, and business partner, and housemate.
Fear is important because it's spoken about in Friends by Chandler Bing, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
About having the fear and needing the fear to get going back on that grind set. And I tried to persuade Jad, but ultimately he didn't. He chose to keep a job and stabilization and a roof over his head.
Well, no.
Over the fear.
That's not true. What I've done is I've soft quit, so my hours have halved. So my money is slowly going down. Instead of being homeless this June, I'll be homeless next June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's still there, but, So you've kind of got, do you feel like you've got the fear now?
Yeah. I mean, it's been like almost 9 months now. And I was freelancing before, so I'm quite used to like a little bit of insecurity and like feast and famine vibes. But you kind of have to cycle it. Okay, let's get a routine going. I'm doing like 2 weeks crazy grind set, and then like 1 week depressed, and then you can just get a little like
the highs and
a
the
little
lows.
highs and low like motion going, because it's very difficult to maintain constant grind set.
Yeah,
I think you would go a bit crazy.
You found that to be fair, because obviously again because you reduced your hours, you had more time on your hands.
Yeah.
So forcing yourself into like a routine is actually a big part of your life.
Yeah, I'm way happier.
Yeah.
It's horrible that it works, isn't it?
It does.
It's horrible that, like...
Yeah.
It'd be great if like you could just sit there all day, just blissfully enjoying life. And just doing nothing. But no, lack of purpose people talk about, I suppose. But
What is it specifically? So with comedy, do you like making people laugh, or do you kind of enjoy more kind of like the audience manipulation?
Manipulation? What do you mean, like a puppet master?
Yeah.
Oh my
Not
God.
in like a horrible way. Like, I mean, more in like a, you know, building up to like a big punchline or building up.
When you really examine your motivations behind it, it can be quite like revealing about you. Because I like to not have a very like misanthropic attitude towards life and comedy, because I think a lot of UK comedians do. They're kind of like, oh, I'm starved of attention and I'm sad, and which is like obviously all things that are true about most people, but like, you know, when they're joking about it and they're like, I try and like distance myself from that mindset, because I'm like, no, I have noble reasons for like wanting to make people laugh. I'm actually like I actually don't crave attention, but then I think that is an aspect of it. I think like
I think all performers like that, it'll be an element maybe.
Oh yeah, and also stand up is crazy because you're looking for a really specific auditory reaction from people, and if that doesn't happen, you haven't done well. But if it does happen, it's great. And I think it's like kind of unique in that way. I mean, I just really like laughing with my friends. That is like literally one of the best things you can do. I've never laughed as hard at a good joke or like a funny meme as I have when I'm like with my cousins or something. Like being silly and being like unserious is really a nice feeling.
I agree. No, I fully hear that. Have you ever like bombed really hard?
Oh my God. I only have one gig that I would classify as like a true bomb.
Yeah.
As in like, because there are times when you'll get an audience who's very quiet and reserved, especially in London, but they're engaged and they're like kind of on board. They might not love it, but they're like no hostility towards you. One of the pillars of the London and UK wide kind of comedy circuit is this thing called gong shows, which is basically a format of show where they'll get a comedian up, they give a kind of white card to 3 audience members. You get, I think, 2 or 3 minutes of like free stage time to do your best stuff, and then a buzzer goes, and then if you get 3 cards up,
you cut.
And the lights go down, and then like it's like the most humiliating shit ever.
That is rough.
So yeah, I've done a few of those. Like I think I've only done 3. 2 of them were like fine, but there was one time, I think last year when I did it, the audience were just like out for blood. Like it was like fucking Ridley Scott Gladiator.
Gotta get him.
Yeah, it was a really huge room. It's at a large venue.
Okay.
Nice.
I want to bait out
Humble.
who it is. Real ones will know. Well, I mean, anyone can do these kind of shows. It's not like something you're booked for, because it's so, I'm like, who would want to do that? Whose career is actually like...
No, I think that's brave. I think that's super brave.
Yeah, so I did one of those. I was on in the second half. Every single person who went up before me, they fucking did not like them at all. And I was like shitting myself. I was like, should I even bother going up? Like I could just go home. But you build a sense of camaraderie with it. So I was like backstage with all the other acts and like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Like the only guy they laughed for was like a kind of older guy who was doing slightly offensive jokes. So I knew,
So you knew the crowd was appropriate.
I knew they were like, yeah.
I think that's a win for you.
Yeah.
Because you don't want like, you know when you're arguing with somebody or you're pushing a point and then someone who you don't like agrees with you and you're like, I hate when you're on you're
It's
like,
the worst one.
It's like that. You don't want an audience that wants that on your side.
No.
It'd be like Tommy Robinson retweeting your shit.
Yeah, literally.
You'd get the views.
You don't want it. You don't want it.
I'm not sure it's the right audience.
Yeah.
What is it like generally backstage before you're going on? Is it quite relaxed? Do you talk, or is it very much in a zone?
It really depends. Because often there isn't a backstage. Even people that are much more established than me, a lot of the gigs you're doing are like in upstairs a pub or like a really tiny venue that doesn't, where you're just like standing at the back. When you're first starting out and you're gigging and stuff, you will maybe encounter some weird vibes and a bit of a competitive atmosphere, but like it's quite easy to avoid because the market is so saturated. Like there's so many gigs going on that you can quite easily be like, I don't like the vibe here, so I will not be returning. But most people are very nice and friendly and supportive. It's so weird to just be holding a microphone and everyone's listening to you.
Yeah, like now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just strange. So it's nice to have like people there that understand what it's like.
Yeah.
When you're on stage, is it very much, I've got my set, and essentially I've got my lines,
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go through it how I've rehearsed it, or is there how much of your set essentially is like audience based? You've gone up there, you've assessed the emotions of the room. How much that affects your set?
I mean, I think you always have to be really aware of the audience and how they've been reacting to the acts before you, or like what their vibe is like. I don't necessarily change my material based on that. I know some people do that have like a super seasoned and they always have like stuff in their back pocket if they're like,
Okay.
oh, this audience is a bit more like rowdy, I'm gonna do this stuff. Or
Yeah.
I don't do that as much. I do like a little bit of off the cuff stuff, but I mostly stick to what I've written. I think it works slightly better because what I do on stage is approaching character comedy, so it can be a little bit more challenging to like break out of that, but it's something I'm trying to do. Crowd work, I tend to just do like off the cuff stuff occasionally, but I think even if you are someone like me that is very like, I don't want to stray too far from it. Yeah, I think even if you are like that, you have to still develop a good awareness of what's going on around you and try and connect to the audience and be flexible with it, which is a really hard thing to learn.
There was a question I was going to get to, because I've written about this before, about like self-deprecation in comedy, and like I definitely initially, when I was writing and doing that sort of stuff, like I would lean on self-deprecation so much as a way to be like, well, if I say it, if then you shoot me metaphorically, like I've already shot myself there, like nice one.
Yeah.
You know, do you find you do a lot of self-deprecation in comedy?
Yeah, interestingly, like in an early version of my set, when I was kind of just starting out-ish, I had this whole bit. It was kind of more of a heightened and more of a kind of like high status character than the one I have now is. And it was kind of, I'm not going to be telling any self-deprecating jokes tonight, so you can like blah, blah, blah. So initially I was really resistant to the idea of being self-deprecating for myself, because I think especially like for women, there's like a tendency to try and make people comfortable with you and try and like not appear too confident and not appear like too high status, because you're already like in some rooms, if you're a woman, you're already like fighting a losing battle in a way. So I can see how some people are like, I'm gonna make you guys comfortable.
How do you feel as a woman in comedy? Like, do you feel as though it's been like a healthy environment?
Honestly, I have had very, very few negative experiences, and I think like that's not true of my peers at all. Like I think I've just got kind of lucky. Maybe I'm due like a big interestingly, like when I first started out and I was doing a lot of like random open mics where I would just search open mic on Facebook and go, I was subjected to a lot of very off-color material by the people who do those kind of nights. But I think once you are having going a bit longer, you can quite consciously like curate the nights you're doing, the people you're like surrounding yourself with, which is not to say that, you know, you can completely curate your way out of experiencing misogyny or weird behavior. But I think I'm quite lucky that I have like friends that put on gigs that are very welcoming. I'm in like a group chat for women who do stand up, and it's pretty much like every day there'll be someone being like,
this happened,
I've had this like sexist experience with this promoter, or so it's definitely out there. I think I've just been quite lucky in avoiding it. I think a lot of people who book nights and who produce live comedy are very, very on it about fostering a community that's not toxic, which is great. And I think obviously there's a long way to go with it, but there's a lot of people doing like really good work.
You spoke about, obviously there you mentioned right at the beginning you were doing open mic gigs. You type in on Facebook and find a gig. Is that how you started out?
Pretty much, yeah. Like the entire comedy circuit in London at the kind of open mic level. And when I say open mic, just for context, I mean a night that anyone can apply to perform at. Some of them more rigorously selective than others. But I would literally just, so I did this course and I had this cohort of people that had done the course with me, but it was a beginner's course, so like not everyone wanted to do stand-up. Some of them were there for like, they just wanted to try it out, or they just wanted to have that experience. So like me and like a couple of other people would do the same gigs together. And it's all kind of organised on Facebook. So I had to defrost my old Facebook. It's so infuriating that I have to like use it in this day and age, but
I hate Facebook.
It's awful. It's such a horrendous experience. Like,
I don't know. I think it's really interesting to people who still do use it, Facebook.
Well,
And you get a little glimpse into their lives.
It's just racist.
Not all racist. Some of them are just general bigots. Like, you know, so I think it's a window into a world which you don't normally get to see.
Do you find it, we'll cut this out. Do you notice, I mean, I like watching the devolution. Is that how you say that word? De-evolution? Devolution?
I think de-evolution.
De-evolution of people from school who have like gone down the alt-right pipeline.
are people still on tape?
Yeah, but they're more like,
Information.
well, the worst that will happen is more like, I've had experience a couple of times where I'll be talking to someone who I thought was normal. And they'll be like, we'll be having a very normal conversation, and slowly I'll notice they'll be like, oh, you know, there's a couple. They'll be like, I hear the hate about Andrew Tate, but like, there's just a couple of things I sort of see what he's saying, and I was like, that's
Right.
like,
All I can say about Andrew Tate is that
you love him.
No, I love him. No,
He's your favourite.
but if Trident are pretty worried about him,
Yeah,
he's probably not a good geezer.
maybe not.
No.
Your relationship with comedy, Joe, is like, I feel. What do you think of Big Bang Theory? You can't see it, but Alice did just laugh.
I was actually a writer on it.
What?
No.
What? Oh.
Imagine.
Joe would have been so excited. Joe does Big Bang.
When I was like, when I was 15.
I want to get it out there, right? I have watched Big Bang Theory in the past.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I used to watch it where I'd play Football Manager.
Okay.
And then I'd have it in the background playing because it was like it was nice background sound.
I can see it as background noise. It's quite like comforting.
It's just like, you know,
It's
there's
the
that
laugh
canned
track.
laughter. Yeah, like if I'm honest, I just like hearing it. You just But Jad's a comedy snob, and his comedy is immature. I'm gonna say it now. He likes poo and penis jokes 90% of the time.
I do. I find it so funny. Like, it's so awful. Like,
So you can ask your question now.
No, it's fine. As a comedy novice, as a comedy fan alone, like, how do you write a stand-up set? Do you write it in your head? Do you say it out loud? And once you have that, how do you sort of go, oh, that's funny?
it's difficult. It's like a many layered process, and I haven't like really found my optimal workflow with it yet, I must admit. But for me, I keep a little notes app open on my phone, and just write stupid, silly stuff down when I think of it, and then kind of like every so often I'll go back to it and think like, what can I make out of this?
Yeah.
And when I only read it aloud like when I've kind of written it, because I'll kind of type in my voice and then convert it into bullet points and then kind of read it out. But you only really, like, they say that you're supposed to try out a new joke like 3 times, and if it doesn't work after the 3rd time you can scrap it, which I don't know if I fully believe in, but like, you definitely don't know if something will work until you've tried it. Which is quite difficult.
Yeah, 'cause that's where I'm thinking is like, you might have this joke and you say obviously you've written it down, but what's your first port of call? Do you just grab your housemate? Do you go, hey, is this funny?
That's what I do to
No,
Joe.
I'm too shy. I
Okay.
literally just try it on stage.
Oh, your first time saying it to anyone is on stage?
Laughing at something on stage is like different to like
I suppose because you
your friend being like, oh yeah.
you set a vibe, yeah.
Yeah. And it's got to fit in with the rest of your set, and it's got to fit in with who you are and your voice. And like, sometimes that's really hard to think about. I'm like, is this funny for someone else, or does this make sense with me?
Because you mentioned you have I can't remember the term you used, but you said you have a character when you're on stage.
Yeah.
Is there a certain name for that?
I mean, I don't know, because it's a kind of heightened version of me, but it's like slightly more of a character than what most people do as stand-up. Like, it's all kind of a persona, whether you're doing like really kind of conversational stuff, that it's still kind of like in some way a heightened version of yourself, but my act is like a little bit above me in certain aspects.
So this character hasn't got a name.
No, it's just
not like
me.
a full-on. Okay.
Yeah. I perform as myself, which is it's kind of an interesting choice that I made when I started out, and now I'm like, oh god, it's so much harder to like write stuff.
It's quite honest, I feel like, going as yourself.
Yeah. I experiment quite a lot with like putting a bit more of myself in it, because I think, like, I don't know, it can be difficult to be yourself and be vulnerable, because then it's like.
When you said you had a choice, what was what other choices are there? I would assume that all comics are themselves.
Well, a lot of people do. There are a lot of people that do like character. It's like character comedy, like literal putting on a wig and doing silly voices.
Yeah.
And I'm like somewhere in between that and regular stand-up. When you're creating, you're thinking about like who you are as a stand-up, which is a long process that like I don't think I'm finished with yet. Like you are sort of thinking like, what aspects of my personality am I going to dial up and what am I going to dial down? And like I was having like a writing session with my friend Joe, who's also a stand-up, and they were saying like we were trying to get to like the bottom of what their persona and their perspective is, because that's really helpful when writing jokes, because sometimes you'll have a joke where you're like, this is funny, but it's just not me. Like the audience will get confused if you have a joke that is like going against the grain of like what your personality is. They won't be able to pin you down and they'll feel uncomfortable, and that'll make them not laugh. And we kind of came to the conclusion that their perspective was, they take everything in good faith. Like they're quite a silly, like whimsical person, and like distilling their kind of essence and their onstage vibe down to like, this is a person who takes everything in good faith. And when they're talking about a shitty dating app date they've been on, they can talk about how shit it is, but you have to resolve it on like, at least this happened. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's super like rambly, but
being in character is important.
Yeah.
You can't just flip between sort of a little bit of it and just. I was thinking
like knowing your IP, I guess, like a little bit.
Yeah. When you said there, you made a choice and like it was the right one. I was thinking, can't you just change it?
I think you can always experiment and change things.
Yeah.
I think it's just something like that is useful. Like having a little phrase to hang on to that's like, I am this person, can be useful, because it just like keeps your jokes within. It makes it easier to write because you're like, this is how I want to write a joke about like glasses with a moustache on them, and how does that fit into my worldview and my persona? Like, it kind of helps direct you. But I think just with stand up, it's like something I found, because my jokes are like a little bit weird and like left field sometimes. I'll get up and start talking, and like the audience just like, I can feel them like struggling to get on board, and they get on board about like 15 seconds in. Because people just, I think audiences really want to feel comfortable, and like if there's someone on stage where they can't figure out and pinpoint their vibe, they don't feel comfortable enough to laugh, and they don't feel like they want to feel like safe pair of hands. And I think really having a really good handle on who you are and what your IP is basically helps the audience feel comfortable and helps you feel comfortable.
So how do you judge? So I'm going to go back again to this. I can't believe you try your joke the first time out on stage. To me, that is absolutely so brave and incredible. How do you know if it works? Obviously, if people laugh, but is there like in your brain when it comes out? Do you know if it's funny before that, or do you wait for the laughter? If there's no laugh, do you do it again? If there's a bit of a laugh.
It depends, because sometimes you'll say stuff the same way 3 different nights. You've got the exact same energy and like same cadence, and like they won't laugh. So like it's sometimes like not an exact science, and like you can't write stuff off just because people haven't laughed. Like it might be that you just threw it away a bit, like you kind of didn't speak slow enough or something really basic like that. It's quite hard to tell like when you're on stage like how stuff's going, because you're kind of in the moment. You can be a bit like, whoa. So I think most people like record their sets and kind of like always like ending on a big laugh basically, and have like a good kind of like sprinkling throughout. And if there's like a lot of gaps or the audience's attention is pulling away a bit, then I would be like, I need to kind of make this more efficient and restructure it a bit.
How often do you write or wrong? Like, do you go on there, is it, I've written this set, and most of the time you're round about that was funny, or actually I was well off there?
It's so interesting, because sometimes you really can't tell, and sometimes like there's, I don't know, so occasionally like I've put in new material being like, this is going to be so stupid, but I'm just going to try it. And people are like, oh, that bit was my favourite. It's a weird one, because like, I feel like there's an objectiveness to comedy. Like there's good jokes and like poorly written jokes, obviously. But like, there's a lot to be said for like finding your audience. And like sometimes because humor is like so subjective, like really more so than like a lot of other art forms. So there's jokes that I've written where I'm like, I know this would bang in the right audience. And like, I know you guys just didn't. You guys just don't get it. And sometimes you're wrong. And like, sometimes that is the case. It's like somewhere in between the two.
Would you start a whole, when you're on stage for the first time with that new joke, is the whole set new? Or would you have a new part of that surrounded by bits you know are funny or know things that have worked as a sort of a tester, I guess?
Yeah, that's what I do, and I am yet to do like a full set of new material because it's just so intimidating. Like, it's best to kind of like start strong with a good opener and then go into new stuff once everyone's warmed up a bit. Also, a great thing about stand-up is that you can be like, hey, I'm gonna do some new stuff now, and then people are much more like on board with it.
That's true, actually. Because I've heard that. Because I went to Top Secret, and a lot of people obviously were on there saying, this is brand new, and I felt like, I better laugh. I better give him a little bit of a. Yeah. He might have played me. That might be like the 15th time he's tried that.
I bet. Yeah, because stuff stays like new for a while, but
So once you've got your sets, what is it? So you've got open mic set where you're trying new things out. Is there a certain type of set you're then building up to?
So you'll normally like start out with a 5-minute set and build up towards having a tight 5, which is like your snappiest, best 5 minutes of all your like most amazing stuff that you're gonna use that for your video to get seen at this club, or like use that when you're doing a competition, and then it kind of goes in increments of like, on a show you might have like a couple of people doing 5 minutes who are like maybe newer, a couple of people doing 10 minutes who are more established, and then a headliner which would be like 15 to 20 minutes. Most people are kind of working towards like incrementally like expanding on that 5 minutes until it's like a headliner amount of time, which takes a while.
And who decides who the headliner is? Is that the promoter?
Yeah, whoever is booking the night. And it's not always someone hugely established.
For you though, is there like a route? So I don't know, sounds like, is there a plan in your head, right? In 6 months' time, I have this set where I am headlining or I'm doing this, and so now I am going to the open mics to prep it all up for this moment? Or is it where you are at the moment is actually much more, I'm just figuring it out and then there'll be times that come up?
It's difficult because I think it can be like by nature quite unstructured. Like in terms of the progress you're making, it's really not linear, and you could do like a headline spot somewhere and then still be doing open mics, or still trying to get seen at this one place and struggling to get seen there. So it's like, I've found that I've had to give myself something to work towards that is just my thing, like not headlining at a particular place, not even doing 10 minutes, because of how unstructured your career path is for any given person in stand-up. You kind of have to give yourself internal goals that are like unrelated to being booked here or getting an agent or whatever. Like, I think those things are all good things to aim for, but like they didn't help me. So at the moment I'm like, I'm gonna try and just write like a 45-minute work in progress show, because it's like my own thing. I can approach people to put it on. It's not dependent on, do I fit in on this lineup, or like does this venue want to book me, which I think has been quite helpful for me, because otherwise it's kind of like a bit of a like wilderness out there, because it's such a huge scene. It's hard to like get your name out there.
Do you have anyone's career that you sort of look at and go like, yeah, I'd kind of want to like emulate that?
Do you know what, this is gonna sound so crazy, but I was watching the Mr. Bean TV series recently, and I was like, this man is insane. He's going crazy. Like, and it's brilliant. Like, I love it. Like, obviously,
a national treasure.
I'm not. Yeah, literally. Obviously, I'm not gonna have Rowan Atkinson's career. That would be.
Well,
I mean, maybe they'll do like a woke Blackadder reboot with me in it. Right.
I'm down. I'm down.
That would be pretty cool. But yeah, just stuff like that where people are just able to do what they want in a really uncompromising way.
Yeah.
Is like very inspiring to me. Like, I don't know. I think it's hard to like think about career trajectory, especially in the UK, because it's so the entire basis of how to make money and like not starve as a comedian is like the panel show economy, which is like not very me and not very a lot of people. And I think it's kind of hard to like think about where you want to go when there's quite a lot of uninspiring stuff out there and like not a lot of like super risky stuff being platformed on TV.
Agree.
Which is fine. I'm like I'm sure it very much has its problems, but like I really am envious of comics working in the US because I think like they put the craziest like alternative comedians on Saturday Night Live. Sarah Squirm, who's this like crazy like goblin like freak character comedian, is like on SNL, which is crazy. And like here I feel like it's very, very safe and like very, very, I mean there's obviously like great, you know, people, but
I feel like in America they're less put off by like cringe.
Yes,
they're so much more down for it. Like sometimes it is cringe. I'm like, okay, because I watch a real split between American and British comedy. Both have their positives and negatives, but I do agree of like I think a lot of the talk, panel show stuff and a lot of stuff you see on like I don't know.
Well, 8 out of 10 cats. Does Countdown.
I think a lot of the comedy is very like similar. And that's the only problem I have with the UK comedy scene. Like,
it's all the same people, isn't it? We're on it, especially on like the TV stuff. It's like a selection of what feels
but, like you get more like freaks in the US rather. Like they're more they're just so down for it.
But I find it quite cringy.
So,
probably because I don't know, because of where I am. But I find it very like in your face, blurty, compared to maybe it is, you know, compared to like English stand-ups where it is much more like structured and it's a conversation. I find like American, they'll shout at you, or like there's a lot of noises. Or it's like,
well, I heard
you know,
quote.
like
I heard a quote.
Again, that could just be the sort of stuff I'm getting shown. But
well, my favorite quote, annoyingly, I actually don't know who said it.
Okay,
so like,
what's your favorite quote?
If anyone's listening to this and does know, can they tell me? Because I've had this in my head for a long time.
This.
It was actually me. I said it. No, it was somebody talking about comedy, and they were saying how comedy is like it's like somebody falling down a flight of stairs and then going through like a panel of glass is as funny as a 5-minute structured joke. That eventually pays off. Like they both have their place, and like, you know, I think that when either thing becomes too one-sided is when kind of maybe comedy is less successful. I'm not saying somebody falling down the stairs and really grievously injuring
like
themselves.
you've been framed, like
like
a lot of viewers.
I guess maybe
a lot of laughs,
like a silly joke, you know, or like something like that. I think
is funnier than. I mean, I absolutely agree that like.
Or as funny, right?
I will never be funnier than like some of the little memes I see online.
Yeah.
I will never be that fun. I will never laugh that much.
Yeah.
As like a silly video. A lot of people try to like harness internet humor.
Oh yeah.
And like it's really hard to do. And sometimes it just is funny. Like sometimes it's so contextless and so silly and stupid when you see just like someone sends you like a silly video in like group chat that like it's almost more of an unhinged laugh than you get from watching
TikTok comedians.
Yeah. Thoughts?
What are your thoughts?
I'm like, oh my god. Okay, so.
And is there a difference? Is there a?
I think let them cook.
Let them cook. The verdict is let them cook. Oh, no, I agree. Let them cook. I think there's a lot of. I think in a way there's a lot of negatives that have come out of like TikTok in general. But I think it is quite equalizing in a way. I think there's people that have like blown up on TikTok that might not, that are really good, that might not otherwise have done it. And I think the alternative is like grinding on the UK open mic scene and maybe not ever breaking through. And like a lot of people would probably be really put off with that. And I think that's great.
But
there's a part. I think TikTok like it kind of allows you to like be a bit more creative with stuff and like try random ideas out and just kind of like see what pops off. Like I have friends that do it that like find it quite useful for that. But yeah, I think
for you,
I don't know. I don't do TikTok. I kind of want to though, just for the reason I said before, because I feel like it's quite good for like just playing around with ideas, like and not feeling tied to your like 5 minutes and tied to like having to make people laugh in person.
You can just make what you want, I guess.
Yeah.
We've done a bit of TikTok.
I was going to say my next point was the man to my right. is a TikTok star.
No, I know that's not true. I had one video where I experimented. I was like, I literally had like, it was like a background. I was like, what's the most Gen Z language-based joke I can do? And it got like 20k views, which isn't loads, which isn't a lot. But like, but it was just to see. Like, it was shit. Like, it's bad.
Really?
I know which one it is.
It's literally, it was about June 2 getting delayed, and it was like about somebody having to then spend an extra 4 months revolving the Ken and Oppenheimer personalities because they haven't unlocked
the next one.
Paul Atreides personality and Riz. So they have
that's very fun. Oh, do you say Riz?
Yeah,
maybe that's what I'll do.
I used all the I was like, what all these words I can use, and I used that, and all the kiddies were just like,
Tell me Riz.
He said Riz.
Maybe I'll do that. I don't ever get that many like youths at the shows I do.
Get on the talk.
Yeah,
on the top.
I'm gonna do. I don't know. Maybe.
That took 5 minutes to make, and it was just to see. Like, genuinely, I recommend.
It's scary the level of like virality you can get from like. It's so different to like Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, you found it because obviously the idea was Jad started doing it like on Instagram as like short like skits.
Yeah.
Well, I did it like I have a blog page.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Positive.
Okay, yeah, I'm not.
Okay. Never apologize for blogging, King.
Okay, but it was so I was blogging, but I just wanted to see if I did a video because some people kept saying if you put your face on it, you can connect with an audience better. So I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
And I don't really like being on camera that much. Like a lot more now, but like before, I'd find it really uncomfortable and awkward. Anyway, I did some like skits and stuff, and then suddenly that got traction. But then Instagram kind of caps, like you kind of, I don't know, because there was a point where I got caps and I was like, I've definitely been like, I've said something bad because I've been like shadowed. I don't know.
What did you say?
I made a fake Carhartt video advert where I made fun of people who wear Carhartt. And anyway, I made this video, and after that, I noticed a lot of my videos got caps, and I was like,
Big Carhartt like,
came for you.
We need to silence this person right
But then somebody was like, bro, if you do this on TikTok, it'll be so different. And I was like, nah, I don't want to use TikTok because I have ADHD.
Yeah.
So I've been told I shouldn't use TikTok.
Oh, really?
By a licensed professional.
No.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I think it's, very bad for you.
Forget the doctors.
But
get on the top.
Like, I'll give it a go.
What if you got famous though?
Well, yeah,
then you could,
I kiss my mental health goodbye.
It'd be a dream come true for Jad Steele to be famous.
Like even like my peers are all posting like heckler destroyed videos.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like sometimes you can see people like trying to farm for it. Like when they're gigging, like they'll be like trying to get like a good crowd work video, and I'm like, I see what you're doing right now. I respect the hustle. Like,
I suppose it's a new way of making money.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is quite hard.
Yeah.
The money side of things must be very hard in comedy.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's still kind of a mystery to me, like how people make money from it, because I do gigs and I also like book gigs as well. So like I know kind of what the going rates are for most people.
Okay, sort of sharing a generalization of that.
Yeah. I mean, this is my experience. I booking like kind of pro and semi-pro gigs. A headliner tends to get, so the person, there's usually like one headliner doing like a slightly longer set, maybe 15 minutes. They'll get maybe like 80 to 100, and then the other acts, if they're paid, not always, will get maybe like 20 to 50
pounds.
That's rough.
Which is not a lot. If we're honest, if you're gigging every day of the week, you're only making.
You could buy like 3 pints after the gig.
Yeah.
But then it's interesting. Like because that's pretty sad. And then if you MC, so I feel like the compare, you get a bit more.
Okay.
Because that's like a more intensive job and more like specialized in a way. That's, I mean, don't quote me on that. That's just like my experience. Like I don't get paid.
It's quite hard not to quote
I
you.
do.
It's quite hard not to quote you on a podcast.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. I mean, like, I mean, your mileage may vary for other people. I don't want to like.
No, I'm sure it ranges pretty massively. It's more just again to me is I have no idea.
But those top higher rates, like a lot of those people are on TV and live at the Apollo and all that good stuff. I guess
they're making more than £100 a show.
Well, not always. Like they will do shows that are like
getting
like 80 quid or 50 quid,
but not live at the Apollo.
No, I'm sure Live at the Apollo. I hope Live at the Apollo pays well.
200.
But yeah,
Yeah, 200 quid.
200. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, it's kind of mysterious to me how, because I do know of some people that do it full time or have like recently transitioned into doing it full time. I'm like, how do you get to that point where you're like, I'm gonna quit my day job because I don't know, the maths is not.
You need the
fully...
fear.
Yeah.
If you have to.
But then also, I don't know. I guess if you're on TV, that's a different thing. Like if you're on like Taskmaster or something, or getting like.
Is that the dream?
Pretty nice. I don't know. I wouldn't mind doing Taskmaster.
Yeah, you wouldn't mind. Okay.
I mean,
BBC. Just if you
Yeah.
listen.
If it was wackier.
Alice,
If they took-
Alice
if they took
wouldn't
more-
mind.
it's quite wacky. Like they've got Sam Campbell on there now, who is like
Yeah.
a very wacky guy. So I think there's room for wackiness.
Is there a
yeah.
dream? Is there a dream gig?
I would love to stand up at like a punk DIY show. That sounds really
Nice.
random, but
No,
I have
no,
a
no.
friend,
I don't
Alex
even know what that
Burr,
means.
Shout out, who like just did a gig in Chicago that was like at a punk show, and I'm like, that's so weird and crazy,
No,
but
that's
like
sick.
I kind of love it. I don't know if it would work for me, but
What makes a good gig for you?
I think a good, nice and varied lineup that's like well chosen, and a good MC as well is really, really important. It's a really like crucial role because you're kind of like in charge of the audience's energy. Basically, most of what they're doing isn't material. It's instructing people to clap and getting people's energy up and doing crowd work. Like it's really hard. I think that is really important. My friend Charlie puts on a night called Big Head Comedy. Shout out, it's really good. And he always has like clowns on. He has kind of sketch double acts. He'll have someone doing super straight up normal stand up. And that's always the funnest stuff. I think sometimes when you're seeing like 11 people being
in a
like,
row.
have you guys used Hinge before?
Yeah.
Oh man, like that can
It can get boring.
get a bit boring, and like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really nice having like people doing drag or people doing like
Yeah.
those are the kind of gigs I really enjoy, where it's lots of different types of comedy and not just stand up.
How do you get booked on those gigs?
Mostly it's people seeing you at a show and being like, hey,
another
come-
one.
yeah, and come and do my thing.
So it isn't like you
Yeah.
apply to be on it, put your name in there yourself. It's more they come to you.
It's a bit of both. Like you can always, because most of these nights have Instagrams now, you can always reach out on Instagram.
Is
But
that what do you do that?
I do that a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I should do it more, but like you always have more success when it's like they've seen you and they like want to put you on, which is obviously like not something you can rely on happening. So you do have to do a bit of like begging as well.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier if someone's seen you in person.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Because I don't know, sometimes a video like doesn't hit the same way, or like it's not
Yeah.
current or whatever. So yeah, I think that's how I've been booked on like most shows I do, because I'm still like kind of starting out. I do like, a lot of gigs that I apply to do as well, and kind of a few that I've been asked to do.
How many gigs are you generally doing?
Wow. So over the summer I did this experiment where I was like, I'm gonna gig 4 times a week, like doesn't matter what gig it is, I'm gonna do it and grind and see if that
Get on
gets
that
me
grind
anywhere.
set.
The Sigma grind set was on. It was good. I think it was a good thing to do. It got me, I think it just improved my like confidence a bit and like,
It's like practice, I guess.
yeah, just really spamming the set loads,
Yeah.
I think did help. But also, I don't know, I think I kind of do believe quality over quantity is important, like especially as I'm not super club comedian that's like doing crowd work and doing all that stuff. And I think now I've kind of dialed it back a bit and I'm trying to do more stuff that I feel more strongly about, which I prefer. I did a gig recently that was in the basement of a pizza place in Covent Garden, and it was like the gig was included with their £16 like pizza and a pint deal, and they had their pizza and the pint upstairs, and they had to go down to this fucking basement and like watch comedy afterwards, which I'm like,
You have to.
crazy. There was a lot of people on dates, yeah, but it was so bad.
Would you go on a first date to a comedy show?
Yep.
Fair enough. Then you're asking for trouble.
It is like, because as soon as they sniff out that you're on a date, they'll get you. Like the people that do crowd work, not me, I'm very nice, but I've seen so many variations of like, are you a couple? And then like 2 different answers.
The
or,
guy's like, yes. And she's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
He's like,
and like, how do you guys meet? And they're like, Like, how long have you been together for? And they're like, a week. I don't know.
You've been subject to worse comedians picking on you than me. I think with me, they kind of... I remember exactly what happened is I was wearing that Bauhaus t-shirt.
Yeah.
And they were just like, that's cool. And they went to you and they were like, what do you do? And you were like, I'm a coach. And they were like, paedophile.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
But they picked on you more than me.
That's so, yeah.
Well, I think because you
I'm a bit nervous.
you were very nervous when they were speaking to you. They went,
Yeah.
all right, let's get this freak off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair play. All right. If you were speaking to someone who was starting new and they wanted to get into stand-up comedy, what sort of pathway options do they have?
I mean, I think it's nice in the sense that everyone starts from the same place, unless, like, you know, you're some kind of Austrian prince that's like a Nepo baby in stand-up.
Okay.
The main thing to do at the start is just, like, get a good 5 minutes. Try and do, like, a range of different nights to start with and go from there, really. I think what was really, like, pivotal for me and, like, what really helped it to go from, like, a hobby, or not hobby, but, like, something I'm doing casually to, like, something I'm like, oh, I'm really into this, I really want to keep doing this, was just, like, finding like-minded people. I think the most important thing to do is get it off the ground and get up and do it. And it doesn't matter if it's bad, just, like, you need to break that barrier in any way you can. Like, do a course. The one I did at Soho Theatre is really good. I would recommend that.
What course was that?
It's just called Comedy Lab.
Okay.
At Soho Theatre. There's a lot of others that you can look into if you know you need structure. I would recommend that. And it also gives you, like, a cohort of people who are doing the same stuff, which is also really nice. What I would also say is, like, sometimes you don't need to be miserable. Practice and, like, you know, work hard and stuff. But if you keep doing a gig where the promoter is a bit mean, it goes on till 11:30, and everyone's telling you, oh, you need to do this gig because you'll get seen for this. If you don't like it, don't do it. Don't waste your time doing stuff with people that you know don't get what you're doing. And that's, like, maybe slightly controversial, but I think that's really helped me. It's not always going to be fun every time, but it should be fun most of the time. So
60% of the time.
60% fun.
60%
40%
fun.
misery and grind set.
It's the majority.
I think that's really good advice. I think, like, you do get a lot of other people being like, suffer.
Yeah. And it's kind of, it's easy to get dragged into that mindset because it's very prevalent. You need to be gigging X amount of times a week, but it's not. If that's not for you, then, and that's not how you work best, then don't feel peer pressure to kind of do that, I would say.
Alice, thank you very, very much for this evening.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, honestly.
Where can people find you, reach you, find your stuff?
So my Instagram is You Know My Swag, Not My Story, all one word. I've had that since 2013, so it's my cousin Mairead made it for me, shout out. Yeah, everything's on my Instagram, link in bio. And my name is Alice Markey, like khaki.
Alice Markey, like khaki.
Like khaki, yeah.
Brilliant.
Nice one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Alice. Thank you.